as Denisovan or Denisovan. So they found Denisovans in Denisova cave in Siberia relatively recently, like a decade ago, and they classified it as a new species.
What made it different for them to be able to classify it, like the literal shape of the skull and brows similar to Neanderthals?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, we hardly have anything. So as I say, we only have a teeth and a jawbone. And what's interesting is they're quite big as well. Like the Denisovan molar is like way bigger than a sapien molar. And that leads to people who have theories that maybe they were giants or something. But they're a distinct species because, I mean, they're so much bigger, but we really don't know very much about them because of the sheer lack of fossil evidence.
Ooh, it sounds like there's a lot on the bone there, no pun intended.
Yeah.
That's going to be a rabbit hole for me. I'm very unfamiliar with that.
The end of the year wears everyone down. Long days, short nights, too much caffeine, and somehow, of course, you're still exhausted. If you've been pushing through burnout, it might not just be stress. It could be your sleep. Thankfully, there's GhostBed. GhostBed is a family-run company founded by a team with more than 20 years of mattress-making expertise. They know how to build a bed that's comfortable, durable, and actually helps you recover after long days. Every GhostBed mattress is made with premium materials, proven cooling technology, and their exclusive ProCore layer, a targeted support system that reinforces the center of the mattress where your body's the heaviest.
I have a microbiology degree, and this book made me furious. Scientists spent decades calling Neanderthals primitive brutes. Then, the moment white people found out that they were kind of related to them, suddenly Neanderthals are intelligent and creative. Angela Saini's Superior investigates race science, how it's shaped research, institutions, and the stories that were told about human history. This detail at the very start of the book was when I knew that I was in for a great read. So for decades, Neanderthals were portrayed as subhuman, right? They were hunched, violent, barely capable of thought. That was the scientific consensus. Then, genetic research revealed that people of European descent carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. And almost overnight, the narrative shifted. Suddenly, papers were describing Neanderthals as sophisticated, creative, possibly even spiritual. They're the same species, same fossils, same bones that had been sitting in museums for centuries. The science of it all didn't change, but who it implicated did. And that changed everything. Saini's argument isn't that scientists are evil. It's that they're human, and their biases shape what they look for, what they find, and what they decide it means. So same fossils, different story. If you've ever been told that science is neutral, this book will make you as angry as it made me. My name's Danielle. I'm going through the best nonfiction books I've read over the past 5 years. Follow me so you don't miss the next one.
He said Neanderthals are not completely extinct. Their DNA, some of their DNA still lives within us.
Each of us carry different fragments of the Neanderthal genome across our genome. So if we sort of jump from person to person, we can see how much can we puzzle together of the Neanderthal genome in people today. And the jury is a bit out on that still, but at least 60%, say, of the Neanderthal genome is still walking around on two legs, so to say, today. So they are not totally extinct. They sort of live on in many of us.
I did 23andMe. I had 89% of the Neanderthal variant of all in their system. What does that mean? You have more Neanderthal genes than 89% of the people who've submitted their DNA. Now, most of us only have a small proportion of Neanderthal genes, only about 1 to 4%. Early members of our species migrated out of Africa. They met and sometimes interbred with the Neanderthals. So if you have any ancestry from Europe or from Asia, you probably have got some Neanderthal genes. We have complete genomes of several Neanderthals. We're able to know, for instance, that some Neanderthals had red hair. So you might think, hey, if I have red hair, maybe I got that from Neanderthals. But it actually turns out that it is a different gene that causes the red hair in Neanderthals. So not all redheads are descended from Neanderthals. But because most redheads are European, most redheads have got some Neanderthal genes in them.
If you're a human and from anywhere outside Africa, that means that you have some Neanderthal DNA in you. So full disclosure, I'm an archaeologist, not a geneticist. So me talking about genetics is kind of like getting medical advice from that crazy guy at the hospital who steals Band-Aids. But I do work with a lot of ancient geneticists, and I think about it a lot. So here's what I know. So first things first, most of the Neanderthal DNA that's still present in modern humans specifically codes for parts of the immune system. This is probably because as our ancestors were first migrating out of Africa, they were entering a continent full of diseases they had never experienced before. However, Neanderthals have been evolving there for thousands of years, and it evolved immune responses to deal with these diseases, so having any Neanderthal immune genes would have been super beneficial in Eurasia. Now, through some interbreeding, Neanderthal genes kind of got splashed in the Homo sapiens gene pool, and any Homo sapiens that had inherited Neanderthal immune genes would have had a better chance of surviving and making babies, and passing down those Neanderthal genes to their children. And that is natural selection, baby. Now, what this means is that if somebody looks more Neanderthal-like, like say they have a super prominent brow ridge, it's not because they have more Neanderthal DNA than other people. Or at least, it's not the Neanderthal DNA that's causing the super prominent brow ridge, because most Neanderthal DNA codes for immune system stuff, not physical traits. Now, in modern humans, the amount of DNA that's inherited from Neanderthals ranges from between 0 or nearly 0% in Africans to between 1 and 2% in non-Africans. So if you took a DNA test and it told you that you had 96% more Neanderthal DNA than others, all that really means is that you have 96% more Neanderthal DNA than everyone else who took that same brand of DNA test. But you're still only going to have a small amount of Neanderthal DNA, like in the low percentages, like maybe 2%. Now, this does not mean that you would look or act more like a Neanderthal than anybody else. It probably just means you have more Neanderthal immune system genes than others. So probably the only significance you'd have is on your immune system. However, there was a study last year that showed that if you have greater Neanderthal DNA in you, you have a higher risk of experiencing severe complications from COVID-19. So stay safe.
So I did my 23andMe a while ago. And there's a section where they tell you your Neanderthal variants. So how, I guess, closely related you are to the Neanderthals, or how much Neanderthal DNA you have. And this is what I got. So it says, hey Cece, you have more Neanderthal DNA than 99% of our other customers. I'm not sure whether this is a compliment or not. Like, what do you mean? Like, is this image basically me? Running in the wild in New York City? Because at the same time, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, but at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. But the rest of my breakdown came out to be like 50% Chinese with a bunch of Mongolian, Korean, First Nations, and Turkish and Siberian ancestry, and Manchurian. So that part makes sense. But the Neanderthal part?
Did you know that only 100% Homo sapiens have what they call 9-ether, carbon, woolly, curly, kinky hair? The Bantu are 100% Homo sapien, and all the descendants of Bantu share the 9-ether, carbon, curly, woolly, kinky crowns. Straight hair and coarse, wavy hair is a result of having Neanderthal chromosomes, and all those on the planet with straight hair and coarse, wavy hair have Neanderthal chromosomes. Study. For the more you study, the more options you will have. And the more options definitely means the more power. This is why they call it your heritage. And this is why the Holy Scriptures told us to protect our heritage. Because when we lose our heritage, we lose that 9-ether, curly, woolly, kinky crown.
Someone has gotten their 23andMe results back and found out that they have more Neanderthal DNA than 100% of the other users. Like right now, currently, somebody on that platform has the most. And now I'm really curious, like I want to know what you look like. Like, I'm pretty high up there. I have more than 76% of other customers. But who has the most?
Guess who did their 23andMe? Yeah. Technically, it's not my results, it's my sister's, but potato. Like, people have such interesting results on their 23andMe. I was like, wait, I want to see what's going on with me too. Growing up, I would hear like these jokes, like, oh, you are adopted from X community. You don't even know how you got here. And that would always make me go like, ha ha ha. Why would you say that? So for my guesses, obviously I'm Somali, so I'm expecting to see a good amount of Somali. There are just some ethnicities that it just doesn't make sense for me to have. Like, if I had Brazilian in my chart, like, I would be happy, but I'd be like, how? Like, and there are certain ethnicities that I would expect to see in my chart because of just the location, like Ethiopia, Kenya, Sudan, Yemen, that sort of area. Now, once you look at that, honestly, there was no need for this test. I already knew my spirit. I already knew.
I beg your pardon?
Honestly, this was a waste of my time because I already knew. I never thought that you could be 100% of anything. But let me be the first to tell you that you could be 100%. I mean, it would have been fun to see something shocking in my chart, but
Let's talk about what it means to have Neanderthal DNA and why that's not a bad thing. When you get your 23andMe reports, you might have a report telling you how much DNA you share with your Neanderthal ancestors. Neanderthals were a group of ancient humans who lived in Europe and Western Asia and are the closest evolutionary relatives of modern humans. And while they may have... How do you pronounce this word? If you say Neanderthal or if you say Neanderthal, you're actually correct either way. The word thal is the German word for valley, but in German, of course, it's pronounced as tal. The word Neanderthal is a nod to a 17th century German theologian named Joachim Neander and the secluded valley, or thal, that he loved to visit. Nearly 200 years after Neander's death, peculiar bones were found in the valley, initially believed to belong to a human with bone deformities, but it was, in fact, a Neanderthal. It wasn't until 1886, when 2 nearly complete Neanderthal skeletons were found in Belgium, that the scientific community recognized the remains for what they were, a very unique flavor of human. So whether you say Neanderthal or Neanderthal, you're actually saying the same thing. I hope you learned something.
Really, this is going to sound silly, but this is really important cutting-edge genetics. One of the areas I'm really lucky I'm blessed to work in 3 distinct areas of biology: immunology, genetics, and reproduction. And on the genetics side, I get to go to conferences and hear about advances in genetics in all species. And I was just at one a couple of weeks ago down at the Cold Spring Harbor Lab in Long Island, and I learned a bit about what's being known about the genome of Neanderthals, the genetic makeup of Neanderthals. The genome sequencers, led by Svante Pabo, who works in Germany, has taken tiny little fragments of Neanderthal bones, isolated DNA, and determined the genome of the Neanderthal, and used that information to determine, using genetic methods, how long ago Neanderthals and humans were a single species, where the common ancestor was. And they've also been able to compare human genomes and ask the question of whether there's any evidence of Neanderthal genes in the human genome. And they found that there is. And the amount is quite significant, upwards of 5 to 7%. Neanderthals used to live in the Neander Valley. You could have called it the Cayuga Lake Basin, but that's where they lived. And out of Africa came the modern humans, and the word the geneticist uses, admixed. They admixed with the Neanderthals. And they all used to live in caves in those days like this. Came out of Africa, admixed with the Neanderthals. This was Neanderthal territory. There was another group of Neanderthal-like creatures called the Denisovans. They lived up here in Siberia, and they have their genome has been sequenced. They were distinct from the Neanderthals. And so you can find in people of European and Asian ancestry evidence of about 7%, 5 to 10% of your genome is common with that of Neanderthals. We've been separated from them for 30,000 years or so. And in some of the tribes in Papua New Guinea and those islands out there, there's evidence for a different kind of genome, which is probably the Denisovan genome. And they might have 7% Neanderthal and 5% Denisovan. So they might be 12 or 15% different from us. And in fact, the Africans who came out from Africa have no evidence of any Neanderthal genes in them. No evidence of admixture. So they're the real pure humans. Homo sapiens. Really, really interesting, and it gives you a lot to think about. Right.
And here we have another excellent example of an individual trying to spread misinformation in order to attempt to dehumanize an entire ethnic group of people. And just so that one is aware, all human beings have a small amount of Neanderthal DNA, and that has actually been scientifically verified through genetic testing. Also, no human beings have dog, mice, or fruit fly DNA. But oddly enough, trying to dehumanize an entire ethnic group of people sounds oddly familiar. I wonder who that sounds like.
Ah, here it is. My test results. Can you hear my heart beating? Oh, the white man.
No. Y'all do know they using mixed people to identify who's an indigenous American, right? Like an original American. You do know that. A person with Neanderthal blood. What? And we keep telling y'all they don't have the Southeastern tribes in their database. Come on, man. And they don't deal with what happened in the past, bro. They don't deal with that. That's the reason you got stuff like Nigeria on the test, because it's not operating based off what happened 400 years ago, right? It's an ethnicity estimation, okay? I'm covering up his face and his first name, but they're using people with Neanderthal blood for who the first American was. Now, how is that a thing when Neanderthals wasn't in America? But we keep telling y'all these DNA tests is, it's not based off ancient history. And y'all get mad when I tell y'all I'm 100% American. But y'all better know how to read. Stop doing that bandwagon and
Homo sapiens aren't as unique as we once thought. In fact, only about 1.5 to 7% of our DNA originated in our species alone. Everything else we share with our ancestors and those human species we coexisted with, including Neanderthals, Denisovans, and even something we like to call ghost populations. This rewrites the story we have told ourselves about our species. We just aren't that unique. For a long time, we believed Homo sapiens were the special ones, the human species that outcompeted and replaced everyone else. But modern genetics has revealed something much stranger. When our ancestors met these other species, they did not just compete with them. They mated with them. And those encounters left a permanent record in our DNA. In other words, those ancient humans we thought had vanished did not necessarily disappear. Some of them are still here, inside you.
When you say that I'm 2% Neanderthal, what that means is that there were groups of people that were separated for 800,000 years from each other that in the end came back together and found a way to make it work. And that's kind of wild. That's a story that our histories don't give us.
Why are white people so different? This is one of the theories, that we're an aggressive, patriarchal people due to our DNA from the aggressive, patriarchal Neanderthal tribe. Modern scientists will tell you that our Neanderthal DNA has no effect on our behavior, and most academics will tell you that it's a bad idea to give white people a genetic excuse for their behavior. Other ideas include the theory that our recent cultural history has been one long reaction to our own colonization by European and African explorers. Some scholars will tell you that we're lashing out because we're insecure about our lack of melanin. After all, paleness in nature is often a sign of sickness or death. Other people think it has everything to do with Christianity, that we can only conceptualize of one God, so we can only conceptualize one way of being human. Personally, I think all these theories have merit, but mostly I think that our culture adapted to our environment. As I've discussed here before, mean circumstances often turn out mean people. And in terms of natural resources, Europe is the poorest continent in the world.
Did the Neanderthals also come out of Africa?
They seem to have emerged from another hominid that was a common origin to human beings, but they did not come out of Africa. They emerged from that hominid, which had also spread across the globe. And perhaps that's one of the ideas or suppositions in relation to it independently. It's why in the human genome, the only human beings without Neanderthal contribution in any way are Africans, people in Africa. So they have no Neanderthal genetic contribution whatsoever, whereas European descended peoples, Asian descended peoples all have some contribution at some level, varying by percent. So it's there.
So modern day Africans have no Neanderthal DNA.
No, sub-Saharan Africans do not at all.
So they're more close to the original Homo sapiens.
In all modern human populations, there's been some genetic drift away from like the original Homo sapien to some degree or another. But in terms of outside contributions, yes, they don't have these the Neanderthal contribution or the Denisovan contribution, which are a similar Neanderthal-like cousin to human beings. So they include none of that in their genome. In that sense, it's more Homo sapien thoroughly.
There's a known interbreeding event from the lineage leading to modern humans into Neanderthals, but it's supposed to be only 5%.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the whole genome, the Neanderthals and Denisovans cluster. Denisovans and modern humans share an ancestor well more than 700 or 800,000 years, as you expect from the history. But if you look at the Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA, it's only 300 to 450,000 years. So what the current genetic work is asking us to believe is that even though this is only 5% of the whole genome, it reintroduces mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosomes, and they jump up to 100% frequency. It's kind of a crazy claim because the probability of this occurring by chance is low, maybe 5% times 5%, so a very small number. There's this amazing data from this site in Spain that's like 200 to 400,000 years old. It's called Cima de los Huesos. And they have a nuclear genome that looks Neanderthal-like, most of the genome, but their mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome is Denisovan-like. So it really looks like there was a population related to modern humans that pushed into this Cima de los Huesos-like population, displaced its mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome, but kept the rest of its genome. So it really looked like something like this happened. Usually in most communities, women have kids if they can, but men in traditional societies are actually very variable in their reproductive success. A large fraction of men never have kids. And then a subset of men have many kids with many women. And so there's competition among men for kids. So in this context where males are competing for access to females, then female mate choice begins to be an important process. And you have a phenomenon where if your dad is an archaic male, then you're not going to be as successful in the competition for local females as if your dad is a non-archaic male. And we actually see this in human society. So for example, if I remember right, like in Central African rainforest hunter-gatherers, there's different treatment of boys and girls depending on whether their dad or mom is one group or the other. The reason I'm talking about these matrilineal or patrilineal expansions is I'm really troubled by the fact that the mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome cluster Neanderthals and modern humans, but the rest of the genome clusters Neanderthals and Denisovans. This is like a crazy result that is not seen in any other species where you see this pattern. So I'm very interested in patterns that would explain this.
I am with Shanazazed, brought back to life, as it were, after 75,000 years. One of the most significant discoveries of a generation. This is a reconstruction that was made from the skull, unearthed in 2018-2019 in the Shanadar cave of Iraqi Kurdistan. It's super rare to find Neanderthal skeletons. The skull was flattened when it was discovered, and it took an expert a whole year to piece it together. What is really significant about her is that she is the key to unlocking the culture and habits of a number of other Neanderthals who she was found interred along with. She was apparently deliberately placed in the ground, and this is really significant because it shows that Neanderthals cared for their dead, and in that respect were very much like us.